All right, we're back. Recording Wednesday, October 2nd. This story will come out Thursday, October 3rd. We are here to talk about the Nova Top 10 High School Sneak Peek into the 2025 season. Joining me, as always, Assistant Scouting Director Jordan Jones. I am Jason Burton, the Virginia DC Scouting Director, and you are watching High and Tight.
Okay, let's do this thing.
That has never happened before. That will never happen again. Just an absolutely seamless intro. Killed it. Nailed it. Appreciate everybody joining us. This video will be embedded into our story as well as on our YouTube page. Make sure that you, what is this saying? Like and subscribe and whatever else. Make sure you jump on the YouTube page and check out tons of content on there from past and some recent stuff from tournaments and scout days and everything else. But obviously, we're here to talk about one thing and one thing alone, and that is the Nova Top 10. Again, it is first week of October, and we are looking at high school baseball. Why? Because we can and because we want to. And it's because that's what we do. So I will preface this pod with we spent far and away the most time on this one. Um, some of them it was pretty cut and dry who was number one. It was pretty cut and dry who was the top 10, and then it's kind of all sorted itself out. This was tough. Why? Because there's so many schools, there's so many players, there's so much talent in Northern Virginia and DC. So we did combine DC into Northern Virginia, just because honestly, the number of teams we wouldn't have been able to create a top 10 uh, for DC. So we decided to keep DC into Nova. For this ranking. And Jordan, anything else to add before we jump into it?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we spent some time on this, and it's just difficult because just the depth and the talent throughout North Virginia and DC area is it's amazing. It was tough but fun to go through the top teams in that area.
Yeah, I mean, there's some perennial powers that got left out of this that just had a ton of turnover from last year that are going to make us look like fools by the end of the year. And that's okay. It won't be the first time, won't be the last. Um, I mean, but again, I'm not going to single out any of those teams, but like it's some historically dominant programs that got left out of this just because of the turnover that they had from last year and what some of these other programs have coming back. All right, so let's dive right into it. I'm gonna go alphabetical. Honorable mention. We have Colonial Forge Eagles, right, Jordan? Colonial Forge
Yes,
Eagles. Um, Gonzaga. Are they the Eagles as well? So
maybe. Yeah. Hmm.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Heritage. We have Colonial Forge, Gonzaga, Heritage, Light Ridge, and Riverbend. Those are our top five, or those are our five honorable mention teams. Um, just kind of like quick hitter off the top. Um, a little something about each team. Forge returns a lot from last year's team. The one thing I think that they lack is like true frontline arm. McCarthy and Stempen have that potential to be that. Kind of need to show that. Um, Again, they have some spots and some places that they need to fill and replace from last year. But that is a team who can make some noise in that Stafford area, um, and just need to show like their pitching depth and the ability to you know to have an arm to dominate those, honestly, the end of the year games, right? They do fine in their district and Stafford area, the Fredericksburg area, and all that stuff, and will be perfectly fine throughout the season. They get to the end of the year in Class 6, they got to find a way to kind of finish with some of their arms. Gonzaga lost a lot on the mound, lost some seniors, returned 2 key pieces up the middle in Bryant James and Cash McDade. They'll need to figure out some stuff on the mound. Hoffman has made a late jump, a 25 right-hander. I think we've had him the past 2 weeks up to like 87, mid-80s, get up to 87, maybe an 8, and show some upside. I mean, I think he's like 6'4", 6'5" kid. Looks the part. And I'm probably going to butcher this last name. Is it Majkowski?
Majkowski.
Okay. So those are 2 arms that could factor in for Gonzaga, as well as some others. But I think that's where the biggest question lies is on the mound. They have some talent on the positional side. Heritage, kind of the opposite. The Van Tile brothers, really, really good arms in the Leesburg area. And they'll dominate on the mound for them. They're going to have to figure out the offense. Both of those guys will be contributors as well as Owen Brundage and Cooper Miskelly, kind of who's going to fill in around them. Light Ridge, obviously they lose a lot with losing Nunnally and losing Donovan Newell and losing Rowling, as well as some others. I think they have some solid pieces back. Mason Sproat has got to be consistent throughout the year and kind of, hopefully be their guy. Dylan Herr coming in behind him can provide some depth in that rotation. True frontline starter consistency is what they need, I think. They're going to have to replace Nunnally behind the plate. I know there were some times, or I think there were some times last year where they wanted to move him to the outfield to show his athleticism out there. And he honestly just stuck behind the plate. So I think there were some questions about catching depth there. So they need to figure that out. But they do return some pieces in Ben Drinkwine and Jimmy Burpo and Mitchell. Anybody else there?
Coleman swinging well for them.
Yeah, Matt Coleman, right?
Yep.
So they have some solid pieces there. And I believe their season ended at the hands of our next honorable mention team, and that was Riverbend, correct?
Yeah, Riverbend.
Riverbend made a really nice run last year. They returned their frontline arm in Luke Alexander. Honestly, no Luke Alexander, they're probably not in this conversation. They need to replace a senior arm that graduated in Klimzak, but they do return probably 50-60% of their offense, somewhere in there. I would say over half of their offensive production from last year, and they have their returning frontline arm, which puts them immediately into that conversation. And honestly, Coach Labruciano finds a way with this group every single year, it seems like, to be in the hunt, to be in the conversation for a state tournament bid, or getting deep into the state tournament, or winning a regional championship. They're in that conversation every single year, it seems like, recently. So especially with somebody like Luke Alexander, you don't want to count them out. Those are our 5 honorable mention teams. Jordan, anything to add to the 5 honorable mentions?
Yeah, like just with the depth that they have, these teams can be a problem for anyone any given night. So like, don't be surprised these other teams beat up on each other, because there's talented depth throughout this region. So this honorable mention teams are very talented.
And again, we left out some pretty solid teams. But I mean, we can't go forever with it. Sticking true to our top 10 and 5 honorable mention for every region. All right, starting out at number 10. This team was a big question mark last year because of the turnover from 2023 season. And they struggled mightily to start the year. I don't think that's some secret. I think everybody would be in agreement with that. But the Independence Tigers VHSL Class 5, again, struggled at the beginning of the year, and then just kind of took off and had a really nice finish to the season. They return a pretty substantial amount of their team from last year. Colton Hicks, Shane Howie, Chase Opsgarden, Quinn Pott, Carter Schuster, Aiden Spagna, Brady Yates, with Opsgarden and Yates being recent commitments. Opsgarden committed to Bridgewater. I really like that get for the Eagles. And then going to another Eagles, I believe, Brady Yates, Mary Washington. So those are two recent commitments for them. Spagna has really come on behind the plate. Flashed really well at state games this summer on the offensive side. Schuster's been there for them, left-handed low slot arm. Colton Hicks, kind of Mr. Everything. Like, he does a little bit of everything. He can defend. He swings it. He's a front half of the order bat. Pac, just versatile, athletic, competes, plays hard. Same thing with Opsgarden. Howie has been there for numerous years. A ton of production for him. I thought he had a really nice Commonwealth Classic tournament last year with us. Jordan, anything to add on Indy?
Yeah, just kind of going back to last year, just throwing those underclassmen into the fire and making them figure it out. Yeah, they struggled early, but as you saw the season go on, they improved. So those guys just getting those reps, getting those experience was huge for them over a stretch last year, and I think that's just going to continue to improve this year as they have that experience under their belt. You're on mute.
And again, I know we've talked about it on the other episodes, but just wanted to make sure we throw in there. Understand that we do not factor in any injuries that we don't know about, any transfers that we don't know about. Anything that we do know, we'll factor in as best we can. If we don't feel comfortable about talking about a young player that we think should be in there, we're not the coach. We don't write the lineup. We don't have the power of the pen. So because of that, we try to steer away from maybe some people who very well may be a large part of that team, but we aren't 100% sure on. So we try to steer clear of that stuff. So these are mostly guys who contributed last year, and we have a pretty good idea that are returning this year. Moving to number 9, Bishop O'Connell Knights. Key returners: Kamari Chisholm, Shota Fogus, Noah Hott, Truman Leckie, Drew Markey, and Jack Woda. Obviously, Shota was a Future Games guy, just committed to College of Charleston. Noah Hott, the University of Richmond commit. Truman Leckie. I'm throwing this one out there, Jordan, and I know you'll fact check me. East Connecticut State.
Yes, there you go.
Look at there. And then Jack Woda, recent commitment to East Carolina. So those are some of the commitments on that team. Jordan, they lose a lot from last year. I know that Murray was out for pretty much the entire year on the mound. They lose Rampy, who I really liked watching pitch. Just straight sinker, bowling ball sinkers up there, and just like one. And then Powell, they lost Michael Powell, like I said, and they lost Peyton Kijak. They lost a couple of others. What do you see? What do they need to do to kind of, get over that hump? Like, they've had some talent. They got a new coaching staff coming in with Coach Brissett. They have a new coaching staff coming in. What do you want to see, or what are you expecting, or what gets them over the hump this year with some of the talent that they have?
Like for me, I think it's a positive and good for them is that they're up the middle is still there. Jack Water behind the dish, Noah Hart at short, Chisholm at second. Like you have some guys that have been there up the middle, so that's huge for them. But obviously, you lose some of that offensive firepower with Powell, Kijak, those guys. So you might have to play some of that offense. Then also you lose some arms, so you had to get some consistency out of these guys on the mound. Markey, Fogus, Like those guys have to step into a bigger role this year, be their frontline guys, and that's where their success will happen if you have those consistencies from those arms. But just like I said, those guys back up the middle, it's going to be a huge piece for them coming back this spring.
Yeah, for sure. Every single year I feel like I go in, I'm like, Bishop O'Connell, like number 1 or 2 or 3 in Vista Division 1. And then it's just really up and down at times. So like you said, I think some consistency, I think some of those guys stepping into larger roles for them could be huge. And Noah Hutt's a dude. All right, moving to number 8. St. Albans Saints. Key returners, Logan On, Preston Benner, Henry Miller, George Minjak, Jacob Romhelt, Miles Upchurch, and Lucas Young. Those are some guys who were contributors last year. Obviously, the horse is who?
Miles Upchurch.
Okay. The number 125 in the state. One of the best arms in the on the East Coast. One of the best arms, honestly, I mean, in the conversation for being a top arm in the country. He just pitches, right? He's athletic. He's built up right. It's 3-4 pitches for strikes. You look at it and you're like, it's nothing that makes you take a step back and you're like, holy crap, right? Like it's not like wowing, but I think it's just because everything is so good and you just kind of like, what to expect out of him. Like you're not wowed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's pitchability, it's starter profile. He's athletic. It's quiet. He just comes up there and shoves and then goes on about his day.
Yeah.
So when you get him on the mound, good luck. Be a tough day. I would say be a long day, but it might be a really short day. Preston Benner behind him. Henry Miller returning behind the plate for some offense. George Minjak. Again, some of those other pieces that I had touched on briefly. Jordan, what would you say is kind of the one question mark or something that you think that St. Albans needs to show?
It's just that next guy after Upchurch for me. Like, when he gets on there, what you're going to get. But you have another game that week. You already used Upchurch. Who's going to be that next guy to step up? Benner can do that for sure. But like it's those guys after that, you're gonna have to have some arm depth throughout the year. So I think that's my biggest question is who else on the mound for St. Albans other than Upchurch in those big games. Someone's going to have to step up, have some big quality innings for them throughout the year.
For sure. All right, moving to number 7, Madison Warhawks. They have a ton of key returners. Luke Ayer, Jimmy Bellini, Chase Dorsey, Max Julian, who I got a chance to see this summer and love, Daniel Killerin, Hector Orozco, Nico Papathanassau, hopefully I didn't butcher that, Nathan Tondrolt, hopefully I didn't butcher that, Kyle Tyrell, and Cale Yates. Jordan, I know you got a chance to go to Madison. That was your first time at Madison last year. We'll keep it PG. There's your first time at Madison. Obviously, they return a bunch. They're there every single year, regardless of whether it's Bryce Eldridge and James Triantos and Tuft and Echezarreta and all those guys and those big names. Regardless of whether it's those or just a group of guys who are not top 2 round players. Regardless of what it is, they seem to always be there every single year in the conversation for a state playoff bid, for a regional title. What do you see out of this Madison team?
I just think they're going to be prepared. They're coached very well. Coach Dorman gets those guys prepared and ready to go. And like obviously they're a veteran group. The guys returning, so they've been there. They know what it takes in preparation, big games, going on the road to win. Like those things that are very positive things that you want in a ball club. And they won't shy away from those things. So just having those guys back, being coached well, and they at Madison, that's a tough place to play. So being that having that on their side, playing at home, getting those wins on at home, and then take care of business on the road, I think this team is very capable of doing that and putting themselves in a good position to win the spring.
All right. Moving on to number 6, Paul the Six Panthers. Key returners: Will Emerson, Aiden Gallagher, Thomas Jewett, Brendan Monkey, Carter Purdue, Greg Quintana, Matthew Rousey, Will Ty, Ryan Vaxmonsky. I don't know if there is a team in the state that lost the offensive production that they did. Just tremendous losses with Soroy and Peltier, along with you got guys like Maddox Flat and Tyler Russ. Like you have multiple guys who were multi-year contributors offensively for them. Honestly, they may have. I won't say the best because we'll get to the best probably. They have one of the best. I would definitely say I would feel very comfortable saying probably top 2 or 3 pitching staffs, probably top 3 pitching staffs in the state. Depth, they can give you different looks. I don't think right off the top I'm thinking of any left-handers, but you got Emerson who can drop it down and kind of soften it up and give guys a different look and throw strikes from that low slot. And you got Gallagher and Monkey, Monkey's definitely a different look. And Purdue, Quintana, Rousey, like there's not many teams that have that depth on the mound. They've got to figure out the offense. That's I mean, if they can figure that out, I mean, obviously you have some pieces there with Jewett and Will Ty and Vaxmonsky. Like that's a pretty good start.
Yeah.
We'll see if Gallagher kind of factors in there at all on the offensive side. But like the arm talent is there. They've just got to figure out the offense. With the teams that they face, those 3 or 4, if they're grouped together at the front end of the lineup, like we've said with some other teams, like you got to have somebody that's going to drive them in on the back end.
Yeah.
Jordan, anything to add to the PVI?
No, I just kind of piggybacking off what you said. Like that staff is plenty of depth. Like Carter Purdue, like what you're going to get out of him. So that's an arm you can rely on. Gallagher is I expect to step into a bigger role on the mound. And you have guys, like Monkey, Rousey, Quintana, like those are guys that have been there. So those guys, they're arms you can rely on. Just if you scratch a few for those arms, they're going to be tough to beat.
For sure. All right, moving to top 5. I'm all over it. I'm all over it right here. We're going with the McLean Highlanders. Returners: Ethan Ball, Brennan Cord, Jack Daly, Christian Dre, Alex Gonzalez, Gabriel Pegues, and Aiden Prell. I say Auden Prell. Let me tell you, like, the separator here from McLean, in my opinion. One, if Ethan Ball can have a year like he had last year, obviously that's pretty huge. With that, like, I think it was obviously, again, we don't want, anyone to be injured or anything like that. But for them to do what they did after losing Yuta Shimo there at the end of the year, who was a huge piece for them for so long, for them to continue to do what they did and won the state championship of Class 6 state championship was huge. The difference maker for me this year is the potential of a healthy Christian Dre. We don't know the status. We have no insight on that. Absolutely none. So pure speculation. If he is healthy this year and he is on, that's a tough 1-2 combo with Gonzalez and Dre. So figuring out pieces behind them, sure. But like Gonzalez is going to work deep into games. Like he's efficient in the zone. He can spin for strikes. I mean, my man will be through 5-6 innings with freaking 8, 9, 10 punchies. And, he's only 65, 70 pitches in. They do lose some arm depth with Nance and Carey graduating. But again, Dre was out last year, so he could fill a big role. He could fill a big void that those two left if he's healthy. I think they have some offensive pieces. They will need to figure things out behind the plate after they lost their senior catcher. But you're returning. Was Ball Class 6 Player of the Year?
I'm not 100% sure, but I would think right the year he had.
Yeah. And that's maybe I'll tell you this. How about this? He's our Class 6 State Player of the Year. If he wasn't VHSL's, he was ours. But yeah, I think Dre could be the difference maker there. What you have in some of those other pieces, and then Ball just continuing to do what he did last spring. All right, moving to number 4. We're going to go, I think it's Warrenton, Virginia, right, Jordan?
Yeah, Warrenton. Yep.
We're going to go to the Highland Hawks. Talent-wise, like up and down, like just pure talent, mound, and at the plate. I don't know collectively as a whole if there's a team that has more positional and arm depth. They got to put it together and finish.
Yeah.
Like they especially in my opinion, in Vista Division II, specifically, there's not a program like Greenbrier. They're there every single year. Greenbrier is. They don't always have the roster talent up and down that Highland does, but they're there every single year. And like Highland just has to, I think they have an ultra high ceiling that sometimes they don't get to. What are they returning? Benji Cardone, Stephen Christopher, Christian Dart, Danny Farrell, Brooks Graham, Weston Lillard, Joey Rogers, Justin Summers. They did lose. Obviously, they lost some pieces from graduation. They lost a transfer, but they also gained, 3 transfers? We don't get into those too much because I don't know how Coach Higgins intends on using those guys, so we don't want to speculate on that. But 3 quality transfers that will help them out too. Probably more so on the mound, and one more so probably positionally and offensively. They have some young hitters in Wright Broadhead and Quinn Peck that I think will obviously be factors there long term. I don't know the intended use on them, especially at some of those positions where these other guys play. But they're as talented as any team in the state. Up and down the lineup, up and down the roster. In my opinion, the question mark is just finishing. It's just finishing and showing up every day and just competing from first pitch to last pitch in that game. Jordan?
Yeah. It's one of the more talented rosters in the state. And if this team can put it all together on the mound, offensively, defensively, all that stuff, they are going to be very hard to beat. I don't think there's any denying that. It's just like you said, the question mark of putting it all together. This team could be pretty special.
Yep. Talent-wise, obviously they're in the top 4 right now, but that ceiling could be up around that 1 or 2 spot. So Number 3, moving to number 3, the Gainesville Cardinals. Coming off a solid year, tough finish to the end of the year, really tight game. I think that game was with Battlefield, wasn't it?
Yeah, Battlefield.
Came down kind of right there to the end. I think I was watching like they got into a weather delay or two, and I was watching like the Game Changer feed, and I forget who hit it. I want to say Rittenauer hit it. Somebody, I mean, just squared one up, and I was like, that ball's down. That ball's down. It was multiple runners on base, and that was going to end the game. I believe it was going to end the game, and you know, Game Changer video, like it's like watching from the blimp, right? Like, you can't see anything. But off the bat, I'm like, that ball's down, and it just gets run down in the outfield. And that's kind of how their season ended. So I know they're looking for some get back this year. Obviously, they lose Lucas Marrero, who was big for them on the mound last year, in the previous years. They return catcher Ben Ackerman. There you see Ryan Petro. That's a talented arm that I'm sure they're excited to have back. But they return Ben Ackerman, Ian Fournier, J.W. Kohlmeyer. There's Ackerman right there. Caden Merritt and Aaron Rittenauer. Here's Merritt here. Two-way talent. He'll be big for them on the mound and in the outfield and offensively. Just kind of does it all. Here's Rittenauer. You talk about like a high ceiling guy, like 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", left-handed hitter who's got some power potential. There's Kohlmeyer. Love watching that kid play. VMI commit, just plays hard and just gets after it. Ian Fournier, looking for him to, you know, hopefully for him, have a breakout junior year. He's definitely flashed at times, and just consistency for him. They have some other pieces in there as well. Biggest thing for me, Jordan, you know what Merritt is, right? Like when he shows up, you kind of know what you're going to get out of him every single day, basically. He's had a really good spring, a really good summer. Continues to kind of turn some heads as we have gotten into the fall a little bit. Ryan Petro, efficiency and getting deep into games. If he can hold 84, 87 through 4 innings and be consistent in the zone and be efficient in the zone and throw the breaking ball for strikes, which he doesn't really have a problem doing. But if he can be efficient in the zone and get deeper into games, from what I've seen, like first 2 innings, good. Once you get to the third, that's where the questions start to be. If he can just hold and be consistent and get deeper into games, that's going to make them really, really tough. What you got?
Yeah, I think that's going to be huge. And if you can get him 4 or 5 innings and bring Merritt out of center and get him to close the game out, I think that could be very huge for them. I think Rittenauer is going to be a huge piece of the middle of that lineup as well. He had a strong summer as well, starting to impact the baseball a little bit more. Him just being a strong, power left-handed bat in that lineup can be huge for them with Merritt and Kohlmeyer at the top of that lineup as well. So I think the offense can be very good. Just have those other guys step into a bigger role, taking that next step offensively and just getting some consistency on that mound. Gainesville can be tough to beat.
Name to know, and I'm going to excite Jordan with this one. Name to know. Oh, he already knows. A name to remember and could be a pivotal piece for them on the mound is Connor Armstrong. He can really spin it. Velo has fluctuated and outings have fluctuated at times when we've seen him, but definitely some upside there and could be a nice depth piece for them on the mound. So that's Gainesville at number 2. At number 3. Now we are moving to number 2. Number 2 is the Battlefield Bobcats. Battlefield returns their whole team. Really strong year last year, especially for all of those freshmen. I think they have a setback. I think it's a higher floor and maybe lower ceiling, just because of the arm depth issues. They will be missing the arm of Tegan Leach this spring. Not the bat, from what I'm told, but they will be missing the arm on the mound, which was big for them. I think that the biggest separator for them is having a healthy Sam Michelle the entire season. I think, honestly, he was a little bit dinged up on the back end, and I think Tegan, was a little bit dinged up and a little bit tired on the back end of the season as well, because he had to carry a heavy load. As Michelle has been kind of, availability wise, the past couple years has been kind of up and down. Healthy, consistent, efficient is what Sam Michelle needs to be in order for Battlefield to get where they have the potential of being. They return Grayson Abel, Garrett Camp, Chase Colangelo, Yogi Colangelo, Tegan Leach, Sam Michelle, Nico Moritz Toledo, Luke Raffalo, Luis Sanchez, Josh Wepner. That's essentially and literally their entire lineup in, I would say, 100% of their production from last year. Wepner could be big for them on the mound. I know he threw some quality outings. I think I saw him versus Woodbridge, and he was really solid through 4 or 5 innings, I believe. Garrett Camp, I stole it from you. I stole it. I didn't. You had to go somewhere else. Garrett Camp could be big for them on the mound as well. He can really spin the breaking ball, low to mid 80s arm. He has started at third base since he was a freshman, so this is his 3rd year on varsity. Kind of like can do a little bit of everything offensively. And then you have Chase and Yogi. You have Tegan to kind of clean things up. Nico, if he can get on base consistently. Raffalo had a big summer. Raffalo had a really big summer at the plate. Sanchez, recent commitment. Jordan, where we got there? Rono?
I not off the top of my head. I think they're red and black. I know that for a fact. I can't think of the name because so many teams are red and black. I know.
All right, I have it. I'm gonna do a little recon, and you take over. What your thoughts are on Battlefield?
Yeah, with Battlefield, I was big on the youth movement last year. I said it over and over again. These young guys that are coming and they're ready to make some noise. And it's year 2 for these guys. I expect them to take another step. They're going to play a big part of their offense this year again. But it's just the next step of them having experience under the belt, teams knowing who they are, how to pitch them, and those things like that. But I expect nothing less of those guys to come out and just perform like they did last year and just be even better. I think it's really high upside for those 27s that they have, also as well as those 26s.
I think the red was correct. And usually when there's red, there's probably black in the uniform, but it is Grove City College.
Gotcha, Grove City.
So congrats to Luis on his commitment to Grove City College. But yeah, somebody's got to step up and fill Tegan's innings. And it'll be good, I think, for him to focus on the offense for a while.
Yeah.
I think that'll be big for him. But yeah, I think higher floor, maybe lower ceiling, because I don't think there's a ton of question marks there. So I don't think there's like if this guy does this or if this guy does that, like kind of what you see is what you get essentially. I think there's some talent and some young talent in that lineup who, if they are a little bit more consistent offensively, that can creep that ceiling up. All right. See, but look at you. You got to be better. You got to be better. Somebody here.
Right.
We don't need like a production assistant here. I just need you to say, "Hey, play the video." So that was Sam Michelle earlier in the year. I think that was like that spring break tournament at
Mhm.
PN. Right there, you see Luke Raffalo. That was a double in the regional game. There's Garrett Camp. Actually, no, that was a state. That was a state game. That was at Glen Allen. That was states. Nico Moritz Toledo, just a premium runner. Um, just moves so easily. Yogi Colangelo can really impact the baseball. Love to see swing decisions and approach and things like that get better or improve. And here's Chase Colangelo, shortstop, can defend, good swing decisions. And here's Tegan, like he just kind of does it all at the plate, like mature approach for him and some physicality and strength and power. Bat to ball, like I really like the offense there. And to do what he did as a freshman is pretty huge, especially up in that area. All right, moving on to number 1. You guessed it. The St. John's Cadets. Again, number 1. Why? Because they're good. Simple as that. There you see Clayton Arma, Ren Devereaux. Filling in behind. Let's see if I kept it in order. Probably not. That was just a ridiculous outing from Ren at the 17U. There we go. I did keep it in order. Yeah, Sean McCabe. Just like you show up at the park, you know what you're getting there. College of Charleston commit. Ren's a Penn State commit, and obviously Clayton is an Auburn commit. Here's the breadwinner here, Nick Felton. I think he's got a chance to be pretty good. That first base coach there was pretty electric. And Nate Houghton Henley, 25 Maryland commit. Gavin Weber, just spark plug infielder, just plays hard. And then Drew Christine. That might be, and I mean, you can't really say like difference maker, separator, anything like that for the pitching staff. I think just like another piece to the puzzle.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you have guys like Arma and Ren and McCabe, who you roll out there on the mound, I mean, Nate didn't even really pitch anymore. Nate was like freaking 88 to 90. Just,
Yeah.
just throwing BBs, just up there, just throwing. And so you got Arma and Devereaux and McCabe, and then you fill Christine in with them and see him get more innings and see him to continue to mature. Obviously, losing some of the pieces that they lost from last year's team. Braden Ruiz-Weiss. I know Troke was out for the majority of the year. I think he started to factor in a little bit there towards the end. Colin Gibbs. Let's see. They lost. What's that?
Marcus Martin. Martin? High Point?
Oh, yes. There you go. There you go. Marcus Martin. There's so many guys. And my mind was going in a different direction because you lose the starting catcher, Mason Bodnar. So you lose so much from last year's team, offensively and positionally. All the arms are back, which when you have a team who is replacing and trying to figure out the offense, you want to have that arm depth and the arm quality. But you have Felton, Colin Francis, Parker Friend, Nate Houghton Henley, Gavin Weber. You have some younger guys who may fill in there. I don't know where a guy like Maxwell will factor in. A 27 left-handed hitting catcher who I think is talented and has some upside. But like all those seniors there and guys who have been there in that St. John's program, a lot of times will be the guys that kind of fill those roles. But we'll see. But I don't really think it's a ton of debate when it comes to who number 1 is. I think we feel the same way about Nova as we did East, right? And honestly, the same way as we did West, and probably pretty similarly that we did with Richmond. I think there's a lot of fluctuation here in probably like 2 through 6, somewhere in that area. that there's a lot of different moving pieces, a lot of maybe some if, ands, and buts. But I don't think there's any question about who number one is. Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, there's talent all throughout this roster. There is one arm that I personally like and got to see over the summer quite a few times. 2026 Michael Tadero. Obviously, he had those big arms at the top, so it's not many innings to go through, but he is a mid 80s arms, ran up to 87, 88. He's just an arm that he's named enough for the future. And with St. John's arms, they make their run late. And I expect him to continue to get better. Velo continue to jump up, but he's just another arm just to keep an eye out on in that deep St. John's staff.
Yeah, I mean, you got him and Peyton Weaver that we didn't talk about. Tadero is electric. And like you said, they tend to bring those arms along a little bit slower. There's some 27s that I like that we had conversations about when it came time for 27 rankings that I think, more than likely won't factor into this team at all. But that just shows the depth of talent in the program and the quality of talent in the program. That's why they're kind of there, at the end every single year, whether it be in the Power 25 or the WCAC playoffs or whatever it is. So there you have it. We'll run back through one time. Your 5 honorable mention: Colonial Forge, Gonzaga, Heritage, Light Ridge, and Riverbend. And then counting down from number 10 to number 1, Independence, Bishop O'Connell, St. Albans, Madison at number 7, Paul VI at 6, McLean at 5, Highland at 4, Gainesville at 3, Battlefield at 2, St. John's at number 1. Jordan, any parting thoughts? Do we have any shout-outs? Any shout-outs to teams that maybe didn't make it but were in the conversation that you just kind of want to throw out?
Yeah, I want to shout out West Springfield. You have Caleb Williams, Liberty commit. He's the guy up the middle for West Springfield, top of the lineup, can impact the baseball, just does everything for them. And then you have 2026 Aaron Dirks, Future Games alum, South Carolina commit, and then Milo Thompson, he's an arm for them. Like, those are 3 guys that are going to be relied on a lot for West Springfield this spring, so they're a team to watch out for. And also Woodgrove, Brian Miller, 2027 catcher, he can really hit. Fletcher, ODU commit, big arm for them. Those guys, Woodgrove, they're a team that they'll sneak up on people because of the big arm and the offense that they possess. So shout out to Woodgrove and West Springfield.
Yeah, you got Patrick Lyons and Kusat in there as well for Woodgrove. It's a little bit – I think that's a team that, just like last year, will run through or have a really good chance to run through their schedule. I think some of the schedule, because of like the district and stuff like that they're in, can be a little bit lighter at times. So they'll run off like a 18-2, something like that. 17-3. They're really tough to beat when Caleb Fletcher is on the mound. Colgan, Julius Bonarise, Gavin Knox, Delometer. They added Marco and Miguel Smith, I believe. I don't know how, but that's what I've seen anyway. And maybe it's wrong, but that's what I've seen is that Marco and Miguel Smith are now there at Colgan, which would be huge additions for them. South Lakes returns some players from there. State, the final 2, they were in the state championship game versus McLean. They lost some guys, Rocky Green and Wojciechowski, who were big contributors last year in multiple facets, as well as some others. But they do return some of their roster and some of their lineup. Briarwoods has some returners. Freedom is always there. They're always there in the conversation, but man, it's so much that they lost from last year, especially on the offensive side. And then Lake Braddock, it's tough to count them out. But man, losing Drummond Laskowski to graduation, as well as others, Patrick Hall and a couple of others, it's just, I just don't know if they we're in that conversation with those top 10 or 15 teams. But I can tell you they're there every single year, so they're probably one of the 2 or 3 that are going to make us look like dummies. Anything else to add, Jordan?
One team that I like to speak on real quick is kind of maybe a little sleeper, Langley. Gary,
I knew you were going.
yeah, they had returned Gary Aaron's VMI commit, Nick Newburn, Penn commit. He had a phenomenal summer. So those are 2 frontline arms that they can rely on throughout the spring. They will have to replenish some offensive production. But like with those 2 arms, it gives them a chance to win this spring. So that's a team to look out for as well.
And then you got new coach at the helm, Coach Hani. And they have some arm depth behind those 2 as well with Benny and Dagu Rana. So they have some arm depth there. Colin Buckley. So there's definitely some arm talent and some innings to be distributed out and keep guys healthy and keep coming at people. But yeah, I think the offense will be was probably our biggest question mark as to what they're going to do there. And again, there's so many others. That's because there's a zillion schools in Northern Virginia. We could probably break this up into like Stafford, Manassas, Prince William, Loudoun County, and just have like a top 5 for each. But that would be a cop out. And we want people to be angry at us for not including them on our list. So, Jordan, any final thoughts, or you're good?
I'm good now.
He got it out. He had to make sure he had to get Langley in there. I knew that's where you were going. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody joining us on High and Tight. That is our 4th and final high school sneak peek. And that was the Nova Top 10. Appreciate everybody joining us, and we will see everyone soon again on High and Tight.